Hello and welcome to Narrow Gauge in the Garden. In previous programmes we've seen how to build a railway in a very small garden, in quite a large garden and on the side of quite a steep hill. Now the thing about garden railways of course is that they're not actually models at all. They're real railways that just happen to be very small. And for many people the real attraction is the ability to run live steam. I don't actually have the facilities here to make my own live steam engines, and if you're going to buy a commercial one, it really pays to know what you're getting.
Roger Loxley started it as a hobby, as a one-man company, and after about a year he needed a hand, so I joined him, and we basically evolved from that up to we now have 15 employees and a limited company now.
And it's in the time that Roundhouse has been on the scene that garden railway steam locomotives really have developed. So what would you say are the sort of main points, the main markers, if you like, of that time that the company's been around?
The first locomotive we did was a single-cylinder tram locomotive, Victoria, which we only did about 20 or so they've become quite collectible. And then Lady Anne and Dillon. Lady Anne we still do today, even though it's a much modified locomotive since the early days. Gas firing was a big step with us, which we introduced with Lady Anne.
And at what point did you stop selling perhaps just in Britain? How did the name travel to the United States and Australia and so on?
Just by word of mouth, really. We only ever intended selling engines in this country, in England or Britain. And then we first started getting his orders from America and from Europe, which was all new thing to us, looking up, simple things like how do you send a locomotive abroad? We'd never had to do that before. And it all kind of evolved. Big thing, we've had a website since about 95, one of the first ones in there, and that opened things up for us. And people were asking to be dealers for us abroad, which meant they did their own marketing there. That opened it up. So
garden railways are really a big growth area within the sort of model railway hobby at the moment. 5 years from now, where do you think garden railway steam locomotives will be?
Hopefully it'll be a much bigger market. It's still a relatively small market, even though it's grown tremendously in the time we've been in it, in the 25 years we've been around. And I like to think that we've been part of the growth in that. So there's still a lot of room for it to grow and get much bigger.
This is where the process of designing a new Roundhouse locomotive begins. We're actually in the CAD department with Rob here, and he's going to show us exactly what goes into the birth of a new Roundhouse locomotive. Or should I say, Rob, this is actually a rebuild of one that used to come out, isn't it?
It is, yeah. This is Argyle. I'm going to remodel it, bring it up to date, and call it the Atlantic, which is its sister engine. And it's going to be completely redesigned in 3D.
So what's made the decision to reissue this locomotive then?
It's basically labour intensive, and it's an old design, so we want to make it easy for the lads to build, and if anything needs to be got at, we can take sections off instead of taking the old body off, which is labour intensive. Plus the soldering as well, before it was spot welded, and now it's going to be properly soldered, and it's going to have redesigned cylinders and valve gear.
So when you come in here and you sit down on the first morning with a new locomotive to design, where do you go from? What do you start with?
Well, we have a drawing which we blow up from 7mm to 16mm, which is the gauge that we make the locomotives at. And then we just start drawing it, but transferring that onto computer.
So that's literally done sort of line by line to get the first drawing onto the computer.
That's right, yeah.
And then I can see that on the screen here you've gone from that to a set of basically working drawings.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. We'll place servos, gas regulators, various bits and bobs that we need to fit in, and try and fit.
And then from that you can go from these 2D drawings into a 3D visualisation of the locomotive.
That's right, yeah, which makes it a lot easier to work with, and it looks quite impressive as well.
And then presumably from that, with this CAD technology, that will just go straight to the machine shop?
Yeah, once we're happy with the parts and that they fit right, they look right, then we can pass them on to the guys in the machine shop.
This is a far cry from those early days in the garden shed.
It is, yeah. We've got a lot of machines here, obviously. We build as much as we can in-house. That way we can check on dimensions, this kind of thing, make sure everything's, you know, as we need it to be. We're not relying on other people to provide us with things. Items can be designed in the office, come out here, you know, we can build a prototype, we can put it into production, and we're keeping control over everything. It makes things a lot easier.
And you can bring things straight from the CAD design onto these machines?
Absolutely. As I say, we can bring it into here, build a prototype, check it on the loco, check the parts, and then they can be put into production very easily.
So what are they actually doing?
We're machining nuts in here. Basically just got a solid bar in there. As you can see, there's a rotary head on there that does all the machining. The beauty of these types of things, you can put a program in there and leave it to it basically. It just does all the machining for you. When it's all finished, open the door, take everything out, and the job's done.
Well, this actually looks like a locomotive now. I can recognise these parts.
Yeah, this is a batch that we're just putting together now. Basically, these are the body etches that have been folded up. The bodywork comes on an etch, so the first thing to do is just to snip all that out, clean it up. It then gets riveted. As you can see on here, we have small half-etched holes, and what we have is literally an old pillar drill with a male and female press, and we literally sit and press all the rivets through.
That's labour intensive.
It is labour intensive, yeah, but that's the effect that you get at the end.
Almost nice items in their own right, aren't
they? Absolutely, yeah. Once this is done, the bodies are all soldered together. They're cleaned up and then they go down to be blasted. We have a sandblaster that literally just keys the surface of the brass, and it just gives the paint something to adhere to rather than just painting straight on the glossy finish. The painting process, basically we use an etch primer on there which really bites into the brass, and then it's a 2-pack acrylic car finish, which is very, very strong, very good, stands up to the heat okay, and gives a nice professional finish to it.
So over here we've got some chassis blocks under test.
Well, basically you've got Marlu, who's the chassis man. He's putting chassis together. I do everything in-house. The cylinders are made here, the wheels are made here. It just means that we have complete control over the components, and we know that, you know, what we're getting is what we're making, right. So we know that they're going to be of a good quality. They go on a rig over there where they run basically all day. It's good, we can just run them on there and leave them to it. We know that they're running in, everything's nice and free. Once they've done that, they can just be checked, make sure everything's okay, and then they're put to one side for the loco builders. We've got Mark here who builds the pressure vessels, gas tanks, boilers. Most of the preparation work goes on here prior to him going down to solder everything up. He also does things like regulators, as he's doing now. Again, all the preparation's done here prior to soldering.
And this is where it all comes together then, Harry?
This is it. This is basically all the stages that we've seen already. All come here. The loco builders get the chassis, get the boilers, get the bodywork, and basically build a complete engine. Basically, they start off with the boiler, gas tank and smoke box on the chassis. Put that all together, give it a run, make sure everything's okay. If everything's okay at that stage, then the body goes on. And
how long would that process take for a standard locomotive?
Generally speaking, we like to get one out a day if we can, which we can do if there's no major problems or issues with that.
So the guys here actually do a bit each and then pass it on to somebody else, or?
No, the way we do it, each loco builder builds a complete engine from start to finish.
Well, I started here at Roundhouse about 3 years ago. Started building engines couple of 2.5 years ago. Basically it was a case of sitting down with Harry at the time, who was like a builder, getting used to building that particular engine, going on to others, same on the job training, and essentially working at Roundhouse is the only job I've had since leaving the army that I like getting out of bed for.
And the final thing of all, I guess, is the test track.
That's right, yeah. All of the locos get 2 test runs. The final run is basically the one where it's checked thoroughly. Before it goes out, we want the customer to receive something that there's going to be no problems with, that we know runs well, and that they can just take out of the box, steam up, and have no major problems with. This is our approach to the whole build of these locos, is to build, check, make sure everything's fine, make sure everything's okay. That way you're going to have a happy customer at the end of it all.
And here's my Lady Anne at home on the Lower Bryandale Railway, and I think she suits the line really well. What I need now, of course, is some rolling stock to put behind her. In the next programme, I go back to see Neil Ramsey, who's something of a master scratch builder.
Thank you.